I went to Brookings, South Dakota.
Brookings, South Dakota. Okay. Is there any reason why why are you being so cryptic?
I'm not trying to be. It's a fun trip.
What? Should I ask you about it? It doesn't sound like you want to talk about it.
Well, there was
next time if you don't want to talk about a trip you're on, please tell me before the show. I won't bring it up.
Oh, I even put it on the show sheet. I was excited to talk about this trip.
But you don't sound excited to talk about it. You keep giving me 3-word answers and then you stop talking.
Well, there was an instance that made me question whether I wanted to do radio or not anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
During the trip?
Yep.
Or just knowing you had to come back here and do this?
No, during the trip.
Okay.
It was a life-changing event. I had Chislic for the first time.
Chislic.
Now, Chislic is either deer, lamb, or pheasant. It's a game meat.
Okay, but you don't know which?
It could be either, all of them. It could be in different forms of these special meats.
Okay.
And then you put it in the fryer, not breaded, but just fried up meat so it's nice and hot. And you season it the hell up with your garlic salt, your whatever it is, your peppers, whatever you need. And it looks like burnt ends.
Okay.
But when it's hot, it's the best drunk food I think I've ever had in my life.
Okay. All right. So you didn't want to be in radio because you just want to eat Chislic?
I want to start up a Chislic pop-up. And I want you to go in on it with me. We can.
Oh, this is your pitch?
I also pitched it to Monk. I think all three of us.
You pitched it to Monk before me?
I called him up. That's what I called. I actually called Monk after you because you're working at the store on Saturday.
Yeah, we had a very busy day. So that was what the call was for? Is you wanted to start a Chislic pop-up?
I think in Arlington, if we were to start a pop-up, doesn't need to be a big store.
They're not going to go for wild game, bro.
You got it.
But I'm not telling you your demographics. You got it in the wrong spot.
It's just hot cubed meat.
I'm with you, but Arlington's all about pho and fucking meatless, impossible, infinity burgers or whatever. You really think that's the place you want? I mean, that's also very expensive down there, too.
I think that... What does it take for a normal small business to break even? 3 years? I think that's
that's what they say.
Yeah. I think we're breaking even after 2.
I don't know if I'm going to be willing to invest 3 years in Chislic. But a pop-up also is not 3 years. So you want to open a restaurant.
Yes. It doesn't have to be a big, not expecting to franchise out, but Chislic apparently is a South Dakota only type. You go there, that's what you're supposed to get.
Okay.
And then I went there.
I'm glad you did that. The local fare is important. You did the exact opposite of what Ant-Man did in Chicago, which is always important.
Yes, I try my best to, when I go somewhere, to try whatever it is that's best in that area.
What if it's blowjobs? Like, do you just start giving them out as quickly as possible if that's what that area is known for? Like if you're in the Point in fucking Baltimore?
I don't think so.
Okay, fair enough.
I think I would stray away from that.
I just didn't know how far this policy extended. But, okay, there's also zero familiarity with the marketplace. That's another problem you're going to have, is that you're going to have to explain to absolutely everybody what it is, and sometimes people are a little weirded out with their food if they have no idea what it is.
I don't think I would call it a Chislic place. I think I would just call it hot meat.
That's disgusting. That sounds like a fucking porno studio is what that sounds like. Hot meat?
I mean, what else? All right, so I just sent you a picture just now of the Chislic.
Is it a dick pic?
No, it's of the meats.
Okay, let me take a look.
And I wouldn't.
Yeah, Goat makes these. I mean, this is what Goat makes when he comes over to the house. Is that he takes a little pork loin and he fries it up and then he puts Dizzy Pig on top of it. That's what he makes.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love the idea. I don't think first. Okay, well, let me ask you this in this business plan. What are you bringing to the table? Because I assume you want me and Monk to pay for it, and I would assume that Monk is going to be the one that's responsible for making the Chislic.
Oh, yeah, I'd just be running the day-to-day operations of it.
So you would work in the shop?
Yeah, I'd quit all this, and I'd go and do Chislic on the side.
You'd be the Chislic guy?
Yeah, that'd be me.
So now I got to find a new producer because you're doing Chislic all day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is working out for me so far. I'm out a bunch of money. I don't necessarily think the product's going to work, and I got to hire a new producer. Okay. What's your time frame?
I'd say Q2 of next year. We got one. That's what I'm thinking.
Q2.
Yeah.
So you're opening in the spring/summer.
Yes, right before all the bars get going, everyone wants their meats, and then they say, "Oh, this is pretty good, but it'll be better in the winter." And then winter time, we get all the.
You think when it's 80, it's gonna be 90 degrees, 100% humidity, people are going to a big envelope filled with stuffed meat or hot meat?
Well, we're just brainstorming here.
Okay, this is a brainstorming session. Okay,
bounce some stuff off.
I hear what you're saying. I like it. This is the canvas to paint on. I would totally agree. Okay, so you're working the Chislic place.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about running a restaurant?
Very little. But I have worked in a kitchen before, and I do understand that operation. But it's not like we're going to be selling like anything else. How
about a food truck? This sounds more like a food truck to me than it does a fucking a standalone joint.
I don't know. I don't know how well I'd be able to maneuver within a truck.
It'd be difficult. We'd have to get very vaulted ceilings. We'd have to get that truck that they had the fire sale in and fucking live free, die hard. I mean, it'd have to be a massive fucking tractor trailer. I mean, the first tractor trailer food truck, I think, in the history of mankind. Like an eastbound and down type situation, loaded up and trucking. We're going to do what Chislic can't be done. Yeah, okay, we'd have to look into that. It'd be difficult. Maybe overpasses would be tough to navigate under. But we do, like, Monk's not a small guy. And, you know, Neil Papalakalaka's not a small guy. He ran a fucking food truck for many years. I just think you have some resources there also you could look into, and then you're not tied down. And we also have breweries that we're familiar with, so then you can roll up and actually have built-in customers. You're not trying to build the base around where you are. And then you can also do it on weekends so that you could, if you wanted to keep, it doesn't sound like the show is going to be a part of this, but if you wanted to keep yourself affiliated with the show, and that way the show could also help promote it, that just seems like a more practical way to do this.
You see, I like where your head's at, because now we can start going, maybe I just work, I go and do this truck for
you do Thursday,
year and a half.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You got to quit your other job. Are you going to quit your other job?
I would have to.
Okay. That's a big deal. Well, I mean, maybe you could keep like 1 day a week there. You think they allow you to keep 1 day a week?
I don't think so.
Yeah, the problem is there's so many guys whose backs you have to rub. Like if you're going to be a masseuse, especially the type of masseuse you are, like it's all about repetition, getting the reps in. Okay, well, I'm interested. I think that we need a few more details, especially I would assume I'm going to be on the. How much are you looking for me from an investment, would you say?
Well, I'm going to talk to my money guy and see what he would recommend.
Your dad?
Yeah.
And look, if you're serious, I love the idea of a food truck, and I love the idea of running it, and I have a lot of respect for people that work in the industry like that. And that's how Monk started. Like, his food truck did so well that he built a nice place, and now he's fucking cranking. So at least there's a path there, and you have more resources, I would say, than most 24-year-olds. 20, what are you, 23?
23, yeah.
Most 23-year-olds would have because of everybody surrounding the show. That's why, I'd miss you, but what I'd like to say, I think we'd be able to continue, but for your sake, I don't think quitting the show is the best idea if you're trying to do something like this.
So you think it's just, let it grow slowly on the side and then just have that be the side gig?
I think you can prep before, like if you are going out to a place, you can prep all your, you see, I don't think you're serious. You're laughing a lot right now. Are you serious? I don't want to sit here and have a serious conversation if this is a bit.
This was definitely, I said, when I first had it, I said,
right,
this is going to change my life. This meat that I just had.
So the meal itself was such a moment for you, an epiphany. Lightning had just struck your brain that it caused this revelation.
Yeah, and I think maybe, was definitely inebriated at that time. I rolled up to the tailgate at about 10 a.m., started drinking 10:15, and then I think I had the Chislic around noon.
I have had many genius business ideas hammered drunk in a parking lot before, so I've been there. But I gotta say, I don't hate this idea. Usually when you have ideas, I really get sad for the rest of the day, but this one's not bad. And I think a lot of people would want to not only help, but I think they would come out. Well, that's good, man. I'm looking this right now. I just did a quick Google search. It costs between $28,000 and $114,000 to get a food truck business up and running, with the average food truck earning around $300,000 per year. Starting your own business is incredibly rewarding, especially if it's a success. That is literally what it says on the internet. That's very funny. Yeah, like a whole list of, you got to buy the truck. And then you got to buy all the stuff to make the stuff in the truck.
Yeah.
And then I think there is an extensive getting registered and the kitchen inspected and all of that shit. Now, luckily, you've got people that have done it and probably can point you in the right direction. Are you comfortable with the truck? Brick and mortar is going to be way more money. Way more money. Just signing a lease, and the build out alone is probably going to be 20 to 30 grand, I would assume. Probably more, because that was the build out for my store, and we don't have a kitchen. So, if you're taking over a place that wasn't already an existing restaurant, and Arlington, I'd have to imagine the rent is through the fucking roof. I just think that's going to be a lot more difficult.
So you think start with the truck? What scares me is a fryer in the truck.
Well, most trucks have fryers in them, so there's funnel cake trucks, Well,
what
are you scared of?
That the oil's going to be splashing all over the place.
Well, I'm assuming you're putting the oil in and getting it ready once you arrive. I don't think you're driving around with the fucking oil in the truck. Then you're pouring it back into the bottles afterwards. You've used a fryer before, right?
I have, yeah.
Well, you can reuse the oil. You know, probably not if you're successful and you're frying up a lot of meat. Do you know the different varieties that you would be interested in selling? Like, did you try several varieties?
Yeah, I had the pheasant, which was a 10 out of 10.
You're not going to be able to get that here, so that's going to be tough.
It'll
be real expensive if you do, and then probably going to. I think wild game. There's only certain butchers that'll actually serve it. I know Whole Foods won't do that.
I had the lamb, which was it tasted like just a hot lamb chop that was just very, very good, and then easy. You know, you're not with a lamb chop. You know, you got the bone, you're working around that, but it's just like take a little toothpick, lamb chop, boom, that's what you got. And then I had the deer, which was
venison.
Yeah, just very, very strong.
I like that.
So, I mean, meat wise, I did it up. You know, because if I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to go see what their meat game is.
I think hot meat is not the name of the business. I think we need to look into that. And I think you're calling it what it is actually could be a boon, because maybe it gets people curious when they see the food truck roll up. And then if the product's good, then they know already, and then they're indoctrinated. All right, well, we'll have to talk about that. Are you coming with me on? No, that's okay. So how are you going to talk to? I'm going to see Monk on Thursday. It might behoove you to come out and talk to him about it, but that's not going to happen, right?
Maybe I'll call.
Right. I just don't understand. But Yellowstone is, as far as something that is on not a premium network, that isn't on like a Showtime or an HBO with those constraints, they do about, I mean, it drops fuck every 3 seconds. I mean, it's not like they work. You're going to want to move. And they have rodeo episodes. You're like, oh man, what if I quit everything right now? And I just went out and I joined the rodeo.
It's like me with the steak.
That's exactly what it is. Like you starting a food truck. Although I doubt you'd be left in fucking paralysis in a goddamn ICU if you're running a food truck.
I doubt it.
Did you see the guy that messaged in saying he would build you a fryer for your food truck?
Oh no, I'll check that out.
He said he would build it for free.
What?
No, I'm telling you. Tell everybody why I texted you last night.
This was an odd text to receive.
You think?
It was a bit
I thought
odd.
I was being supportive.
You definitely were.
I tried to send toward a nice text, and I guess it was odd.
We got yesterday at 10:40 p.m. Steve L is our presenting sponsor for Tomorrow Pal, which we heard at the beginning of the show.
Of course we did. God bless him.
And then 2 follow-up text messages, and I think you should consider the food truck. I think you'd be really good at it and still do the show.
I do. I look, I know you like your other job, and I'm not saying you should give up on your other job, but I was thinking about it last night. I was contemplating it, and I was like, Tor's really good with people. People really like Tor. If he has a passion for this, I think that he's got – and you just got so many more resources. I think the reason why my Commonwealth Dry Goods worked out is because I got more resources than your average person starting up a business, and,
right.
that means something. Think about how far ahead of the game you are than average Joe Donkey Dick that doesn't have any fucking contacts. It's just got to go out and hustle for the first year and a half trying to find – you're immediately going to have 5 places where you can park your truck and sling your shit. And that's just like a huge deal already. And then you've got multiple people. I don't know how many people are walking around with people they know personally in their lives that have run professional food trucks. And we've got multiple people that have done it, including one that's kind of doing – I mean, Brian's doing it right now. He doesn't have a truck, but he has that catering business. And give it to you straight and say, look, this is what worked. This is what didn't work. Here's what you want. I mean, a lot of the mistakes that you would make starting a food truck, you're going to be able to avoid because those guys already made those mistakes.
All fantastic points.
Yeah.
I just need to understand. I need to look at myself and say, do you love the idea of eating Chislic, or do you love the idea of working and peddling it?
That's a big difference.
And that's something that I need to be, look inward and say, you know what, because it's a fucking restaurants work every day. It's all day, hard-ass work, too.
Hold on. Who do we know that owns a restaurant that doesn't work at all?
Oh, that's a good point.
So what I'm saying is, like, it ain't like that forever if you do it the right way. I'm not going to say his name, but we know a guy that runs really successful restaurants that doesn't do anything.
Did you talk to that guy today?
I did. I spoke to him on the way in, actually. He was in the shower with his wife. It was very awkward.
This story has grown hair since yesterday, since we invited Monk out. And I actually was, I forgot who I was talking. I was talking to Fan of Radio. And he said, hey, man, like, I guess Brian from Natural Red Catering weighed in last night.
He did, yeah.
Which, again, his is the worst of them all, I would say, because he didn't even have really a dog in the fight. He wasn't there in the beginning of this story, and I think it was said on the show yesterday, if Brian starts saying something, I'm really going to be upset. Or you said something to that effect, Tor.
Yeah, I did.
Tor came back from San Diego, or wherever the fuck he was, and he said, I found this meat, I like it, I think it'd be fun if I started a restaurant. And we just kind of had a fun segment about it. Monk will have a chance, of course, to defend himself here. And Neil, who I think of as two of the nicest people I know, really did not take that in the spirit of good fun. They took that as you're making a declaration that you're as good as them and that you're a businessman and that you're going to do what they couldn't do, and have been attacking you for fairly steadily, I would say, for 3 to 4 days.
As soon as I made the announcement.
Right. Monk then took it upon himself to become a supporter, by the way. Thank you, Money Monk. Appreciate you. And then go in, and then anyone that dared maybe for a second say, hey, Tor has a dream. He's just looking for advice. Why don't you guys mentor him? Motherfuck them up and down and tell them why they don't know anything. And so then last night, Brian, who is a good friend of the show, and he did the catering out at Fairwinds for our event, and it's just a great guy and a tremendous barbecue enthusiast and does a great job. Weighed in and said, you should be thanking Monk and Neil because they're saving you, your talentless ass. And then he had some hashtag like, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
And that is where I figured this whole thing out. These three, and again, you have full ability to respond here in just a moment, Monk. I'm just setting this up.
Yep.
These three are so triggered and insecure and absolutely horrified of the notion. First of all, I hate to pull down the fourth wall. Tor's not going to start a food truck. He was never going to start a food truck. That's why this makes this also much more embarrassing. They're so terrified that you, a big, bumbling Sasquatch, could stumble into their industry and find success, that would be a social commentary on what their industry is, so they want to immediately tear you down before you could even attempt it. It's the only thing that makes sense. Because all three of these guys are nice guys. Like, all three of these guys are generous guys, and I like them all. And it's so out of character to respond the way that they did to what was really, Tor, I would say, a throwaway segment.
Yes.
It was just a funny bit. And the fact that you texted Monk excited from the fucking tailgate and said, look at this delicious meat. Yeah, but then I think you were rude then, too, were you?
No.
Yeah, I think you're pretty rude. It's just fucking crazy to me. And I don't mean any disrespect with this whatsoever, because a baboon could do what I do for a living. A baboon, if properly talked up, could come in here and do what I do. None of yous are launching fucking intercontinental ballistic missiles. You understand what I'm saying? You're turning on a fryer. Now, I understand it's more complicated than that. For you. For those other two jackasses, they're rolling up in a truck with a bunch of meat and fucking preparing it for people. Yes, that takes skill. Yes, it takes an ability to want to continue to do that and to sacrifice your own personal time. But anybody can do it. Absolutely anyone can do it. Not everyone can be successful doing it. I will give you that. Neil, you quit. You stopped doing it. I hate being this way, but I know Tor is not going to fire back for himself. Now, Monk is sitting at the top of the fucking food chain. I mean, what percentage of people would you say reach the point where you're at right now with your eateries?
In restaurants, probably top 5%.
Top 5%.
Yeah.
And then there's probably another 5% where they're just, keeping their head above water and they haven't gone out of business yet.
That's probably 50%.
It's a horrible industry.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's not. But this notion that if anyone could do it, anyone can fucking buy a truck, figure out how to make 3 dishes, find a guy that owns a business and say, hey, do you need a food truck? I'll do it for 10% less than the other asshole, and do that. I just want to make that point before we get to it. Now, Brian is tremendously talented. I love his food. Anytime you see Natural Red Catering, you should go there. It's delicious. The same thing for Neil. Anytime Neil has made something for me to eat, it has been tremendous. I wish he wouldn't have stopped doing what he did, but it's his life. I wish he wouldn't have sold his beach house. But if Neil gets uncomfortable, he stops doing whatever that thing is. And I get that. But to sit there and then Neil is harumphing Brian last night on Twitter. That's right, Brian. You get that stupid motherfucker who's only 22 and said a joke on the podcast. And then Monk's silently sitting by, like, that's it, just nodding his approval at his fucking barbecue cabal that he has then set out against anyone that could rise up against it. I gotta say, I almost, if you weren't scheduled to come here today, Monk, because I respect you so much, I would have said we can't talk about this anymore, because I don't want to think these are 3 of my favorite people on earth, and I don't want to think about them this way, that they're capable of such a heel turn. So that's where my head's at. Tor, please, and then Monk deserves. We've been haranguing him here for a couple of days straight. He deserves the right to retort.
Yeah. So once the tweet came in from Brian from Natural Red, I thought I was going to be more upset than I was, and then something clicked and said, maybe I will go start a fucking food truck.
Right.
Maybe I will. If everyone's saying I shouldn't do it or can't do it, or they're fucking doubting the hell out of me, Fuck it. Why don't I go start this Joker?
Because it didn't seem to come from, hey, we're trying to save you some money, or hey, let us tell you how difficult it's been for us or what we've had to sacrifice. It was, you can't do it because we're Sam Fisher. We're the Splinter Cell, and we're the only ones they can send behind enemy lines to start the coup. And that's where it kind of turned me off. And I go back to, maybe it's just because also they don't know how to use social media. No disrespect, no disrespect. But like they just come across as such an asshole on social media, where maybe if this was all sat down and said, like the five of us around a table at Monk's having a beer, we'd be having a different conversation right now.
Yeah, but I'd say they definitely inspired me. I was actually
now you're more inspired.
And now they've actually. Normally, if someone's giving me some solid advice from people that I respect, I take it. I listen with it.
Sure.
I try to do what I can do. And then, but in this instance, for whatever reason, I'm going the complete opposite direction and saying, fuck that.
Wow.
Maybe I will actually go find see where I can get some good venison. Maybe I'll go find where I can order in some pheasant. Do I have to hire a hunter in South Dakota? Maybe.
You're going to order in some pheasant?
Maybe.
That might be the name of the show. All right. So at this point, out of spite, you're more motivated now to do it out of spite than you were out of passion.
Initially, unmotivated. I was just trying to sell the
you're
idea.
Not really helping my point here, young man. You're not making me look good when you say you're unmotivated.
When I was the initial conversation,
right,
I was trying to be funny and talk about a new meat that I had that I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Now, out of pure spite, I'm really thinking about it.
Okay. I'm sure a lot has been accomplished in this life out of spite. I'm sure it's happened.
I'd like to give it a shot.
I don't know that Guy Fieri got into it out of spite. You know what I mean? I don't know if any of those guys did. I'm sorry, Monk. You're here.
Is it spite, or is it now somebody's saying you can't do it? So now
I'd say it's both.
That's your motivation.
Well, it was just someone saying I can't do it. Which
Not
is
someone.
Three titans of their industry.
By the way, the three guys that when we first had this conversation, I was like, hey, you got a shot because these three guys are so nice and they're so good at what they do that if anyone had these three guys, these three wise men, to bestow their frankincense and myrrh of meats upon you, well, you definitely have a leg up in this industry over any, dick in the dirt that's just going to fucking go rolling up on a Home Depot and say, hey, can I put my hot dog shack out front?
I can at least get a generic recipe. If I'm some Joe that's making, say I'm making sloppy joes, right?
Sure.
I could reach out to any of those three guys, and they could probably tell me exactly what I needed.
Or maybe Brian from Natural Red Catering says, hey, I'm catering something this weekend. Why don't you come out and see how hard I fucking work to do this, all the prep that I go in to get all the meats ready, and then when I don't sell everything that I thought, all the, having to deal with that. And at least that would have been a learning experience where like, oh, maybe I don't want to go through this.
It could have been, yeah.
Oh, it's just nasty tweets. Just nasty tweets from three nasty men.
I think all those things would still be on the I think all of those things would be on the table. We're not saying we wouldn't support him. We're just trying to steer him in another direction.
Whoa. Where on earth was there any mention of support in any of the dialogue that is taking place?
With me saying the things that I'm saying about why he shouldn't do it, that's my support. Now, if he wants to go, I would still help him if he wants to go against it. Honestly, what he was just saying about, somebody saying that he can't do it and that makes him want to do it more kind of flies in the face of some of the reasons why I would say he shouldn't do it.
Well, go into that.
I actually think he that's a great thing. He's mopey and not very energetic sometimes,
Jesus
and all that
Christ.
stuff. You've called him out for it many times.
That's actually true.
So when the first negative feedback would come through on his truck, I would be scared that his head would hang low.
Okay.
He would lose all of his motivation, and the whole thing would fold like a stack of cards.
Okay, but here's the duality. I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's two things at play here, Monk. There is the industry, which is incredibly difficult. I'm busting balls, but I get it. It's hard to get into it, and then it's hard to find a base, and then it's even more hard to be successful.
Sure.
And it also takes into account that you're good at it, that you're good at actually making the food. And that's only a part of it. You also have to be good at the other part of it.
And the product isn't extremely regional with a weird name.
Agreed. Okay,
Yep.
we can get into that too, because you're hating hard. It is extremely regional with a weird name, but around here, people seem to like to pretend like they're more worldly than they are in Northern Virginia. All we do is go to Chipotle and fucking Subway. We're a bunch of ham and eggers. But every time there's a new weird food or a new weird bubble tea or a new weird whatever, people are like, ooh, I like it. And they tell their other fucking friends about it. So,
I mean, South Dakota doesn't necessarily set the pace on the...
I would agree.
But go ahead.
For some reason, Vietnam seems to be the place we want everything to come from. It seems to be Vietnam.
Sure.
But you're arguing three different fronts here. If it was just, hey, Tor, look at how much this costs and how much work you have to put in, and do you really think that's something, how much passion do you have? Because you're going to get bad reviews, you're going to deal with dickheads. Because I talk to you, you still are having it, you have to deal with dickheads every day.
Sure.
And you're successful at it. But I think it's the attack on the character. I think it's the attack on you're a big mopey fucking waste of life, which is what you just said. I think that's the part where it's like, hey, well, which is it? Is it the business itself, or do you think tour specifically would fail? Be honest.
It's a combination of both. But I just heard passion out of him. Like he wants to do it now because somebody said he can't, and that's something that you can't replace. There's fire there now. There's passion.
That one comment.
That one comment, because I've never heard anything out of him like that before.
I don't believe that. I think it's because I'm sitting right here in front of him.
No bullshit.
Oh damn.
I would not recommend you start this food truck. But if you decide to do it, I know that me and Papadopoulos and Walrath would 100% give you everything we got as far as advice.
I wish.
All the advice so far has been don't do it. That would be.
Yeah,
I feel like
I wouldn't do it.
Don't get this truck.
But if you decide to, I'll give you my best shot.
But Monk, how different would this conversation? What you just said.
Yeah.
That is exactly what I expected out of you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, it's really tough business. I would recommend you do it just because. But if you want to, the three of us will be there to support you.
There were.
That is not at all what has been said thus far.
There were times when I didn't think I was going to make it, and I was staring financial ruin, relationships, all sorts of things.
What successful person hasn't had that story?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's no matter what industry you're in, you know what I mean. You've been through it. A lot of people fail multiple times before they make it work. It just, I got to a point where I couldn't drive 10 miles in a car alone without having to pull over because of an anxiety attack, because of everything going on, and I don't want something that I care about and love.
That's
like
tour. Wow.
To ever feel that.
Wish I had my bell.
So
I don't have my bell out here at the Christmas tree.
That's where the passion comes from. I don't want to see him have to go through the same thing. But if he were to decide to, I would tell him everything I know.
I don't even have a problem with you saying it's not a good idea. I think it's the way this whole thing is unfolded. And this is but look, and here's another problem though with you saying it's not because you're sitting in front of him. I was sitting there with you.
Yeah.
At Monk's.
Yeah.
With Neil.
I was also on Vicodin, but yeah, go ahead.
I got you, but generally that chills motherfuckers out. The two of you were you're giving it to him even harder than you were on Twitter. And I didn't hear a lot about, hey, it's tough being in the food business. I heard a lot of, this guy's a mope. And here's what I'll say, and maybe it's because I have more experience with him. He does mope, and he does, hang his head, and I've seen him do that. But I've laid into him about as hard as I've laid into Drab or Othello or whatever, sure. And he hasn't quit. He's fixed the things that I've talked about. When I send him out to Flying Ace, I don't say, oh, Jesus Christ, I sent Tor out there, I think it's going to be fucked up. I know he's got a good network out there with the people that are working with him, but he works all day long out there. He's performing while he's also running around doing stuff for the show. I think you've seen his work ethic on display, and I think it's been pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Did any of that factor into your decision making?
No, because it's such a different animal.
Okay.
But perhaps it should have. So, Tor, if I hurt your feelings, I'm sorry.
Oh, my feelings are unhurt.
That's another thing. He takes shit like a champion.
He really does.
He takes a ball break and it doesn't even fucking phase him.
So maybe we're wrong. Maybe you would do well in this industry, but I think we got to find another name for the product or a different product for you.
Oh, that's now we're getting in the nitty gritty.
But that's just good advice, isn't it? I mean, if he's just saying, hey, from a marketing perspective, I don't think people are going to, because how many different dishes and food items would you say you've tried out in your eateries over the years, attempted?
A ton. We still do it. And
some of them
sometimes you
work
hit the mark and sometimes you don't.
So that's where, if we're getting to that point where he's like, hey, that's where I would trust him. And that's where I'm not saying you don't do it. I'm not saying you don't say, fuck it, I like Chislic. I think it sounds good. I think it sounds a little bit like a penis or like licking a penis, which is not the end of the world. But if someone said, you want some Chislic, I'm
pretty
like,
narrow
hey,
market.
man, I'm married. I think there's some problems there just because it's not just, if you were saying, we were talking about Juicy Lucy's, right?
Yeah.
that's a whole area of the country that knows about those. So that it was why I wanted to bring Duck Donuts to Northern Virginia originally, is because everyone vacations down in the Outer Banks, so they're all familiar with the brand already. So while it is new to the area, you already have a built-in group of people. And that's why I think it's been so successful. I miss that fucking
They had one
train.
in Leesburg. It was open for like 6 months and then it went out.
Duck?
Yeah.
Well,
it's crazy.
That's fine. They just sold off to a giant fucking corporation. The guy's a millionaire, and he came into my fucking shop and told me the reason why he bought Duck Donuts is because I made or opened Duck Donuts is because I made such a compelling argument on the fucking radio for it, which still haunts me to this day. But I would agree with what Monk is saying is you have 0% of the customer base that would be familiar with the item that you're offering, and that is something you have to overcome. Not that you couldn't overcome it, but that it would be something you have to overcome.
I would agree there. When I first heard about it, and I believe one of the listeners, Will, wrote in and said, this is something you need to try. Like, what the hell is this? You know, he was talking about the cube meat. It's everywhere. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And then I had it, and I'm like, whoa. Like, it was an eye-opening experience. I think if I can get somebody to the side of the truck and give them one of these cubes, they're all in.
But that's a big if.
That is true.
Also, what happens when you pull up next to a taco truck?
That's going to be tough.
I mean, everyone knows what tacos are. I mean, there's going to be a big, long line. There was this, my buddy Cameron Gray was he was down in Miami, and there was like this Cuban puff pastry place.
Yeah.
And it was right next to a Starbucks. And nobody was at the Cuban puff pastry place, and everybody was at the Starbucks. And you want to kill all those people. I mean, you want to drop a Moab on them, but you're like, they know what it is. You know, people do like the familiar. That's true.
Chick-fil-A is always busy.
But it's also good. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
sure.
Chick-fil-A is fucking, they deliver. There's a reason why if there's a Chick-fil-A next to a Burger King, where's the line going to be?
Yes,
Just
Chick-fil-A.
Burger King
100%.
fucking sucks. Everyone knows what it is, but it stinks. Although, no, you like Wendy's. Which one's the one you
I do like Wendy's, yeah.
Yeah,
I like the bacon.
Put your mic up for God's
What?
sake. You've been doing the show with me for fucking, how many years
Not in
now?
this form. Not in the middle of a Christmas tree.
It's gorgeous, though, isn't it?
It is gorgeous.
The sun coming up behind us here. How many did they tell you how many trees they have?
I did not get the exact
It looks
count,
like a
no.
million.
Did you get any information about this place?
Very little.
Stickers Gap Christmas Tree Farm, Round Hill, Virginia. Our buddy Money Monk joins us on the Chad Duke Show. Absolutely gorgeous day out here today. We got to take a billion pictures before we leave. Look at his pickup.
Yeah, it
See the
rolls.
pickup truck?
Yeah.
F-150, what'd you say that is? About a 76, probably?
Probably.
I'd be willing to bet that's a 76. We'll go down there and bet your fucking life tour. As also, though, I would say that to do this, it probably is misleading to him to see these other guys that do it part-time. You know, they're not doing it for a living. Are you willing to sacrifice? You like to drink, and you like to fuck around, and you like to go out to bars, and you like to, you know, just pick up on a weekend and travel out to bumfuck wherever to see a game. That all goes away, right, Monk? Like, if you're going to do it, I know for one thing, to be successful at something, you got to get the reps in. And the only way you're going to get the reps in is to sacrifice.
Family time, friends, all of that.
Now, your family's not that great, and your friends are even worse. So, like, actually, it might be a good thing.
Yeah. Now, but with the show, you'd have a great fan base already built in.
That's what I'm saying.
I think we have to. Perhaps I just haven't tried. If it's everything you say it is, maybe it'll hit my taste buds and just the dollar signs will just go off in my brain.
Do you think so, though?
We should no.
With as much
But
meat as
maybe.
you've had?
No.
Are you allowed to have meat, by the way?
No.
Oh.
No, I shouldn't. The doctor advised against it. But but whatever. We should try it. Maybe on the cooking show.
I don't. But that's not, that is that at all applicable to what he's talking about?
Yeah, because the product has to be right before anything else gets set in motion.
Okay, but here's what I would also say to you, Tor, is someone I've run Commonwealth Dry Goods for. It'll be our 4th year in April.
Sure.
That's pretty. You'd say that's pretty successful,
Absolutely,
right? For a
yeah.
small business.
Uh-huh.
If I'm being honest, I would say 75% of my customers, or the reason we stay open. I don't know if I'm just talking from a value perspective, like the people that actually spend the money. We get a lot of looky-loos that come in there, but they're the worst. It's because I have this. If I was just doing what Monk did, and it just had to be because the business is so well run or I'm off, I don't think we would have made it.
Right.
So, you're going to have some, like Sean and Ellie are going to show up.
Right.
Like Phyllis Speech. There's some good people out there that'll just support whatever you do. Corey Reed is going to be there. But he can't be there every weekend. And that's why my wife has had to cultivate, like, dealing with all the shitheads in Fairfax City and, like, talking to all the locals that live there because, when the listeners aren't there, you got to be able to, expand that customer base, too. And I would be, That's going to be a difficult thing to try to undertake.
And what's the plan when a festival organizer tells you there's going to be 10,000 people and you're going to do 1,200 servings and 20 people show up because it rained and they just trumped up their numbers?
Or even how about this? They tell you you're going to do 20,000. You have to make 20,000 servings. You know, I mean, just that. Let's say all goes great. That sounds completely intimidating to me.
Yeah. I mean, do you want a general idea of how the costs and profits break down? Just in general, no matter what food business you do.
I would love that because
Okay.
now we're having a real. Yeah.
So in restaurant, they call it the rule of thirds.
No, just hand me the whole thing, stupid. I didn't
So
want to interrupt monkeys. They're going into his jag.
Yeah. So let's say you make $1,000. Okay.
Sure.
So then $330 of that, 1/3 goes to labor. $330, another third goes to staff.
But that's when you become successful, though, right? Like, what labor is he going? He's the labor.
Yeah, but I mean, he has to hit a certain volume before, he can even hire anybody else. It's still true while you're small.
Okay.
And then the other third, a lot of people think goes to profit, but that goes your rent, utilities. If you're on a truck, truck payments, insurance, all that other stuff. I found you keep about 8% is what you end up with at the end of the day. Okay, so on $1,000 or on $100, you would end up with $8 in your pocket. By the time you've cut out your weekends, family time, friends, all the things you enjoy, because you're in the truck prepping and you're doing, all that other stuff, and you just have to ask yourself if that's worth it. And I can tell you it is when you can do 30,000 servings a week, and it's very difficult when you can do 100. So it breaks down that way. That's really the finances of it.
And even to that end, I remember one time I went in. I was out there in a weekend at your restaurant, and you sat down. And you said, "Look at the day we're having," and I looked at it and I said, "Holy shit!" I was like, "That's one day," and I was like, "How much of that do you get to keep?" And then I heard that much. I was like, "Oh, that's why you haven't bought the side of a mountain to start a Christmas tree farm because you can't compare what he's doing to what you're doing. I mean, you have 700 employees.
But that's what he would be striving to do.
Is that what you're striving to do?
I mean, getting into vacation for 3 months a year.
Oh, Jesus Christ. But you're looking at him, 25 years? How long have you been trying to do this thing?
A decade.
Yeah. I mean, it's a decade. Well, never mind then. It might be worth it.
Yeah.
You ain't got much going on.
Long game.
Yeah, invest a decade. Well, that's if you do it, though.
I mean, it would be good to do it while you're young. It would be even better to do it with somebody else's money.
Well, that's the thing is we already got messages of people that want to invest in his food truck. Well, I don't know what, but then you got to pay them back, and then I don't know what the turnaround would be on that.
Investors aren't free,
These might be, but I mean they might be wanting to invest $300, and that's not fucking what you're looking for.
You're going to need $60,000 to $100,000 to make it happen.
Oh boy.
Initially.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right for a truck.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work?
Well, because you're talking, if it's fried, there's fire suppression and things like that have to go in there.
it is fried, right?
Yeah.
A lot of refrigeration, has to go on there. I mean, for the truck that I have at Flying Ace that serves as an auxiliary kitchen.
Come on.
That would serve as an auxiliary kitchen because the main
Grab my toilet paper.
kitchen is small.
Yeah.
That was $45,000, and that doesn't have to move.
Okay. Well, then would you suggest, I don't know if this is not interesting to the audience, but I honestly don't care because it's interesting to me. Would you suggest, would a brick and mortar then be advisable?
I mean, if you can find the right spot, I think it
Really?
makes everything easier.
That
yeah.
fucking, you just
I don't
destroyed my
like
toilet
food.
paper.
I don't like food trucks as an investment.
Okay, but then you don't have a lease at least, and you could sell the thing off if, there's already another rube that's looking to ruin their life.
Your lease is going to be your car payment.
Okay, but it's still you're paying towards owning it.
Sure.
Whereas if you just sign up in my studio,
Oh, that's true. I mean, if you can buy the building up front, that would be great.
okay, but he
not
can't
a lot
buy
of
a
people
building.
can do that.
In Northern Virginia, he cannot buy a building.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. I've been looking into what it costs to buy a commercial property. It's very, very difficult.
If you get popular and the people come to you, your problem's solved. But having to pick and choose the spots and the festivals and things like that with a mobile is a very difficult thing.
I get it, but to me, the places that he could have the most exposure, he's not going to be able to afford. Like if he's saying Arlington, he's not going to be able to afford a store. Am I wrong about that? Like,
No, you're not wrong. I mean, the Monks building is very cheap, but because it's off the beaten path and it's out in Western Loudon and Person.
And it's
Also,
near nothing.
You take care of your product, and people will come to it. It gets back to I'm not sure about Chislic. It's like barbecue and Chislic.
there is a built-in passion. Also, barbecue people
will travel.
But it's also strange, Monk, that people that have absolutely no ability to make barbecue kind of base their identity around it, you know, consuming it, which is, it's kind of strange, but it does have that reputation. Like, I don't know that if you go out for dumplings, people feel the same fucking way about it, or pho.
Well, I think it's the same thing you get from bourbon. It is an American invention. It's not going anywhere. It's like in a liquor category. It's our own thing.
Yeah,
but
but bourbon,
from here.
but it also fucks you up, and it also has. I mean, getting fucked up. Everyone wants to get fucked up. That's ubiquitous.
Sure.
But then it also has that crossover that I've always said, where bourbon now has become such an artisan form that you're not just a drunk. Like, you could say, I'm going out to a wine tasting. I'm a craft beer enthusiast. You want to get fucked up.
Barbecue's the same way, right? I mean, you're not just a fat guy. You know,
Right.
there's you know, to eating the best. There seems to be a sense of pride when people talk about these places. And
I've been to this
how
place,
they travel
and
and
yeah.
So, there's some parallels, but yeah.
Do you think television, like, I'm wondering, when you turn on the Food Network and there's nothing but these shows, you know, where there's these barbecue guys are competing, or we've been to this restaurant and we're reviewing it, was that a need that was provided by television, or has that presence on television of all of that shit kind of fostered more people identifying themselves? And I hate the word foodies, but I feel like it's, you know, it started as that, and now it's, you know, there's so many tributaries now leading to the river of I like food. Like, what was the chicken and the egg there?
I think the first thing, there was a need for the first shows, and then the popularity, and then everybody jumped in and copycatted.
Right.
You know.
I just, everybody always goes to diners, drive-thrus. I don't even know the name of that fucking show. Why do you hate that show so much?
You know why I hate that show.
But you know the argument that I always make is that he does way more.
Yeah,
good
you're
than
right.
harm.
You're right about that. You know, it's just the personality.
Okay, he's a little over the top, but he's, you know, he also, I don't know, we're focused on Guy Fieri. Point is that how many people watch that show and then say, I have to go to that fucking restaurant?
Yeah.
So was that happening before that show was on?
No. But a lot of the times it's temporary, and the place either goes back to what it is because what was shown wasn't profitable, or they just can't adapt to it,
right?
Or it just goes to shit. And I've seen a lot of the places go out of business. Like it's interesting.
Well, Bar Rescue, all of them go out of business.
Yeah.
The second John Taffer touches a place, it goes out of business. Now, I love him and he screams at people, so I'll never say a bad word about him. Great show. One of the most entertaining shows on television, but I think he's going into people that don't know what they're doing. And it doesn't matter how much, you know, fucking neon you put up. You're not going to change the fact that those morons don't know how to run a bar.
I mean, look at some of the crazy shit that happens before they come in.
Yeah.
That is. I don't even know how you get there.
Well, I think a lot of people are like, I like to drink, I'll start a bar. That's the worst idea you can possibly fucking have. Right. I think more people should run, you know, like you, pescatarian, you're getting your teeth yanked out all the time, addicted to pills. Like, that's the way you fucking run a barbecue restaurant, because you don't want to eat any of that shit. You just want to talk about your glucose level.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. It's a successful model.
Tor, where are we at with this? Do you feel differently now that we have a Monk here and he's kind of explaining himself to your face?
You know, now that we started getting into more of the real details of it, I feel better. Like
you want to quit?
No, like I finally actually know a little more about it, and I can actually make some you know, decisions opposed to just getting met with, you fucking suck and you'll never be able to handle a bad review or any of that. So it's actually nice to have the real conversation past the internet and the tweets and stuff like that.
Well, I would just also hope that then moving forward, I can't speak for Neil and Brian, they're not here, but I don't think they knew. I think because this is like a fun bawdy show and it's like there's a lot of ball breaking, I don't think they knew how destructive that commentary came across. Because if it just started with what he said, this is an incredibly art industry, these are some characteristics we've seen, this is why we would have, like, that would be real easy. But just that one fucking tweet from Brian last night, I read it like 15 times, I'm like, that fucking guy said this? That dude said this? I think it has a lot to do with what we always talk about with social media, is that it's just impossible to read, like, what people actually mean with the way that it looks when it's just sitting on a screen like that.
Yeah, you can't tell the tone of somebody. For all we know, Brian could have been like, oh, you know, save all your money. You know, it
didn't look like it.
I did not.
I think they're both coming from the same place that I was. I think they just care about you.
Didn't come, but what you need to acknowledge is it didn't come across that way at all. Like if I
I didn't put up the wrestling memes and things like that.
Those were clearly attempts.
They were
humor.
Provoked.
No, those were in response to the provocation.
Yeah.
So what do you mean?
I mean, we're all trying to be funny.
You guys weren't being fun. I think that's the point.
Do you remember the stuff with the Rev at the fishing tournament? This is kind of what it
It's the exact same thing. And this guy was as put off by that shit as anybody. It went from a funny bit onto the show to you guys swinging your dicks around and how you're all samurai.
Yeah.
And it's bullshit.
I have some inward looking to do apparently.
Apparently, I hope you don't use the N-word. That's something I like to try not to do. Okay, so where does the dream list or stand rather tour for you right now?
Right now, if we're looking at the 5-year plan,
Yes.
it probably would still not be included in the 5-year, but it's something that I'd like to keep on learning more about. And if I do start tweaking with recipes on the weekend, I get a fryer and just on the side.
Why don't you join the Fortress of Solid Food? I mean, that could be your first step. See, here's where I think you're full of shit. You knew that if you actually wanted to do this, because I don't think you do. I think you want to fucking GHB chicks, and I think you want to puke and fall asleep in your backyard.
All those rule.
Walk around naked. Like, I just think you want to do all that shit.
Love it.
Monk and I are doing a cooking show, and Neil was there.
Right.
You showed no interest whatsoever. You didn't come out and say, let me see the way this works. How would I fry the meat up? Hey, Monk, here it is. Do you have what we need to make this fucking meat? Oh, by the way, I've got a recipe, or I'd like to see. Like, there was no interest whatsoever in any of that. So it's kind of difficult to believe that you have this burning passion to be a fucking meat chef if you had an opportunity to do something like that and you had absolutely no interest in being a participant.
Well, it's been a whirlwind of emotions, especially because after that Thursday, that's when the real beef started. That was the real beef. That's when it started. I'm like,
the real Chislic.
Okay, here it comes, and then it's coming down the barrel, and it wouldn't stop. And I'm like, all right, now I'm facing the crossroads here. I feel like, but I'll take a little more time. Maybe I'll do a little R&D and figure out what it would take.
R&D.
Nice.
I mean, we could start on the business plan right away if you want.
Yeah, SMD, and then we'll figure this whole thing out. I think you need to Aunt Annie's pretzel this bitch up, is what I think you need to do. Where you need to kind of make it more. You can make the product what it is with the different flavors and shit, because I think that's a good idea. It sounds like it's very customizable, which means you can make a lot of the same thing, but also make it a different variety.
Yeah.
But I think you need to come up with something that stupid people are going to be able to figure out what it is when they're walking up on whatever it is. Aunt Annie's pretzels. Oh, you sell pretzels. I like pretzels. Whoa. There's a cinnamon raisin pretzel here. There's a garlic pretzel here. All that shit. I don't even know those things are in fucking business anymore, but they're at every mall in America for about 20 years.
Right.
So I think if you can figure that out, like I wouldn't call it Tor's hot meat. I think that's what you wanted to call it. Like, that sounds disgusting, but that would at least let people know what it is they're buying.
Or you offer something alongside of the Chislic that gets them in the door. Like you were saying that that you can skewer these, right?
Carton of cigarettes.
So you put a big old slab of bacon on a skewer and send them out into the festival or the mall or wherever you're talking, and all of a sudden you've got the line because everybody's asking, where did you get that? And then they come in, they order some Chislic along with it, and before you know it, you've spread the word.
Yeah, but if they're coming to bacon, why?
It gets them in the door in the first place.
Okay, but
what are you going to call it? That's going to that you're going to get somebody in there.
I have with what you're saying is, if the thing that gets them in the door. Like okay, I'll give you an example. They used to pay me to go out to cell phone stores all the fucking time.
Sure.
They thought that people were going to come see me because they liked the radio and then buy a cell phone. But unless you need a cell phone, like they don't go hand in hand. Like one it doesn't lead to another. I just think if you're going for a big slice of bacon, you're like, well, there's some other weird meat. No, I want the thing the guy was carrying around.
Do you just go up and order one item?
I don't. Yeah. No.
Right.
But I'm also listen to this. I don't mean to disrespect this cheap chiseling fuck. This guy, like he's not going to spend a nickel.
He's not. He himself is not the customer that he's after.
Do you think that his cheapness, by the way, the fact that he'll squeeze a quarter until the eagle shits, do you think that helps him if he's going to be a small business owner?
It does.
I think so too.
I think so. But you're wanting to target with your marketing, Dukes and I.
I'm looking for
Where are your customer base? Okay. Fat. Drunk, well, Monk's a pescatarian now. Got holes in his gums. Yeah. But the guys that are like, we're the people that you want. And I got to be honest with you, the name is off-putting. Now, if we're going to sit here and put all of our cards on the table. Yeah. All right, well, do you want to take, we could probably take solicit advice, suggestions.
I'll take name suggestions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you're going to get some bad shtick, but maybe one out of every, please no bad shtick.
It's going to be one out of every 20.
It's going to be
it's going to be so bad.
If I see like
funny.
Sasquatch meat or something like
that, I'm telling you that's what it's going to be. Here's what I'm telling you right now is I know learned people that have said, why doesn't Tor start Sasquatch barbecue? I had one of those come over last night, which, by the way, is not a terrible name for a barbecue place. Although they might think that you're barbecuing up Sasquatches.
And then they wonder how I got them.
Maybe that's a good gimmick. Although you can't lie about where the meat came from, right? Isn't that like a whole thing?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, no, you can't do that.
I'm saying if you put up like a picture of a Sasquatch with all the cuts, like that might be a fun gimmick where you're actually serving.
Well, if it's obviously a marketing thing, you could. Yeah, that's fine. If it's on your menu explaining where it is, that's a problem. But we're gonna have to source some pheasant and some wild game. So that'll
Can
be.
you even do that though? Because I remember going to Whole Foods and saying, "Can you guys do wild game?" And they had a big list of reasons why they legally weren't allowed to bring
it has to be USDA certified. So there has to be somewhere there has to be a pheasant operation that's certified, and what that does is drive the cost of it through the roof, and you'll never make any money on it. But if you stick to the lamb and things like that, I think you could.
Yeah, we can
you
go
could
lamb
get there.
There's this restaurant in Canada. Rogan had the owner on, and they started getting protested by vegans.
Sure.
And so all they serve is wild game. Like, that's all they serve. So the guy he hung a deer up in the front window, and just as this big mob of fucking vegans around, he just sat there and gutted the deer and just quartered all the fucking meat up. And I was like, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard of. But they had to deal with these people, and it was a nightmare. But their business, I think, doubled and tripled after that because people wanted to see what the big deal was. I think it would cause some controversy around whatever you're doing. Like, why don't we drive you to a daycare center and you can just shit on the carpet right out front? You just shit right on the carpet, and then that'll probably drive people to say, wow, this is the guy that shit on the carpet. I want to try some of his hot meat.
What's his deal?
Yeah, that's got to be a wild man right there.
That's the Chislic guy.
It is. Oh my God, he's dropped a giant Chislic right there in front of the little acorn patch.